I think we're live.
Love being
Hello,
live.
Mr. McAdams.
Mr. Rains, how are you?
I'm doing great. This is gonna be fun for anyone and everyone joining the very first of. I think we'll do one quarterly is the plan. That
Sure.
the new Dealer Alchemist webinar series. And so, if you are joining us, thank you for taking some time out of your day. Welcome to everybody. We're diving in on the impact of online reviews in 2025. And I have to say, online reviews are now probably more influential than they've ever been. I think that's obvious to everyone. Consumers basically decide the decisions based on like reviewing products as simply as Amazon that might cost you $10. And of course, all the way up to what's the reputation of this particular Toyota dealership? Because I'm thinking about dropping a lot of money on a new Tundra.
Of
And so
course.
today we're going to go through a lot of key stats and trends. John's going to lead us through. These strategies are very important for businesses. And this is a topic that for my money, I think that it's one that sometimes is a little bit overlooked because it seems like, we got that. We know we got to have a certain rating. Like everyone feels like they've got this. And yet I still talk to people almost on a weekly basis where we don't got it. So
Yeah.
if you're a dealer, if you're a marketing professional, anybody in the automotive industry, you understand how important reviews are. If you don't know the two guys on screen, I'll introduce John in just a moment. I'm Sean Rains. I'm the founder of Hired Guns Agency, and we produce Automotive Alchemy, the official podcast of Dealer Alchemist, and we are also producing their webinar series. John is the Chief Revenue Officer at Dealer Alchemist. He is an expert, which requires a lot of experience, and he has more than most, 30 plus years on both sides of automotive. He doesn't just simply say that he's worked just about every automotive job, which seemingly there's a new person saying that in the industry every week. He actually has the receipts and the knowledge to prove it. If you missed actually the last episode of Automotive Alchemy, it's a great episode to listen to where John actually goes through a lot of his career and shares a lot of his lessons learned, because that episode is loaded from both sides of automotive. And when I say that, if there happens to be anybody that's watching or listening that doesn't know what I'm talking about, I mean that he knows what's going on the retail side as well. He's been a service provider, a vendor, a partner to dealers. So welcome to the webinar, the very first, John McAdams.
I appreciate that, Sean. I'm trying to figure out where I can submit those receipts and get some, get some compensation back on that expense report for all that knowledge that you say I have out there. It's I don't like using the word expert, although some people will paint me in that color. But at the end of the day, I'm just a guy that's did everything from sell cars to general manager of multi rooftops to really helping dealers out. So I look at myself as a dealership growth specialist, right? That's really, at the end of the day, that's really what I am.
Well, I will say a couple other things before I just give you the reins, pun intended,
Pardon the
and
pun.
let you roll with this. To the audience, John and I have worked together before, and it's a lot of fun for me to support Dealer Alchemist and all the things you guys are doing from a marketing perspective. But we know each other quite well from a previous company where we were there for, I don't know, probably nearly 5 years, but certainly 4+. And so I know up close and personal your capabilities, and I know how well you communicate with dealers to identify those opportunities to grow, to get right down to what's most important. And that's one of the things that I personally have always loved about your style. And that, I think, is born out of having a lot of experience. People have heard me say this many times. I think experience is the greatest differentiator. People that have a lot of it, they seem to be the ones that are able to connect quickly and also effectively. So you don't end up being disappointed with 0 results. You actually end up with results because somebody's been there, done it, and they're excited to help you. So that's very much you. Last thing I wanted to mention, just for the audience, in case you're interested, this webinar is partly inspired by Brent Weiss had told us about this article. We went and grabbed it, and we're like, hey, that's really good. He recommended it. So part of the inspiration today is from an article all on new research done leading into 2025 by the head of marketing at Shoppo. So if you've never checked them out, they've got some really good learning content as well. And just wanted to make sure that we gave a little shout out to them, as we found a lot of great insights, and especially the statistics that John will go through. There's a lot of stuff that that came from that actual research article.
Yeah.
So
and thanks to you and Brent, right? So my knowledge is deep in automotive, right? Just so we're super clear on that. And then I try to apply, best practices from outside automotive back to automotive to see if we can get a positive bounce out of it, right? So I think it's really important as an industry that we take in a lot of the outside influences from other verticals and see how they apply. Sometimes we close ourselves off in just the automotive vertical. And I myself have stepped many times outside those automotive walls and found great things out there and brought them back into automotive that, quite frankly, benefited me and my dealership and my employer, right, to helping them grow. So I promise not to bore everybody with tons and tons and tons of stats. However, I think there's some stats that are super important that we take a look at. And before I go to the stats, I'll say this. Reputation management used to be a check the box solution for many stores. I was probably one of them. In fact, I was one of them until I really understood the power of what a positive review can do, how to manage and control the negative reviews. And then, quite frankly, how does that really affect me ROI? And is the juice worth the squeeze from an SEO perspective? If I'm going to do all this work, what's the benefit to me at the dealership level? So let's take a couple of stats first, right? And we're not going to read them all, but there's a couple of very important ones, right? One is, if we know 95% of everybody online goes to reviews before making a decision, big or small, does it make sense for us to have the greatest possible presentation there? This happens in all of our lives. It doesn't happen just for when I want to buy a new vehicle. It happens when I want to buy something on Amazon. It happens when I want to go out for a steak. It happens for when I'm in a new area visiting with dealers and I need to find a restaurant that I know will be acceptable for me and my dealer partner. I may never have been in that city before, but I'm going to use the reviews to guide me and influence whether I go there. So if we know most of us use the reviews and 30%, 32% of us are really influenced by what we find there, right? It's important to recognize how important this is for your store. The one thing I will say is, although 81% of the people use Google as a base or a foundation for review seeking, I would not leave out Facebook and things like Reddit, right? There's other platforms out there, even third-party platforms, that will manage and hold and collect your reviews from consumers online. So what I would tell dealers on this call is, don't just try to game Google. Make sure that every possible portal that could harness and collect a review, you're managing what that expectation would look like, right? So keep that in mind. There's more than just Google out there. And then I think it's all been proven time and time again where fake reviews are a large issue inside of not only this industry, but other industries. So make sure that you have a solid process in place to review all your reviews and make sure that the ones that are there are accurate and correct, right? Because there's nothing worse than, maybe a bad review that was out there, or even worse, maybe somebody had a bad experience at your store and they went out and told, 15, 25, 30 people at a party and convinced them to leave a bad review for you. Well, let's be clear. Those other 29 reviews are all fake reviews because they haven't done business with your store, right? The one review where they did business with you can stay, but we have to make very sure that the fake reviews are getting as much attention as the accurate ones. So some important information to have in your strategy when you start to look at reviews. And the one thing I will tell you, and the wiggly arm man's not moving, at least he's not moving on my screen. because I used to have a wiggly arm man. I used to have the gorilla on top of this on the store. I put the balloons out on a Saturday in the front line, right? Do all the things that we all do. But the wiggly arm man is not going to be the way to get us to get more reviews. I can assure you of that. It's not a lot of work. It's about setting up a solid strategy so that you know that your reviews that you're getting are the right number. And we're going to talk about that today. Like, are you getting enough reviews? And is that review collection rate enough for you as a dealer partner, right? So we know that people will actually trust these reviews that they read online from complete strangers more than they'll actually look at the reviews from people we may know, friends and family, right? We've all grown accustomed to being social online. So if people in my area go to my restaurant and they find great reviews, and I think they're like me, there's a good chance I'll go there have a great review as well. Conversely, if it's a bad review at a restaurant or a dealership, that also applies. The other thing is that about 70% of the people, 68% of the people, nearly 70, will actually form their opinion of you after reading the 1 through 6 reviews. So one thing I will recommend to dealers is when you go to Google and you look at reviews, the first thing that comes up is the relative reviews, right? These are my most relevant reviews. Slide over one character and go ahead and change it to the most recent, right? Live in the most recent because that's where people are going to live, right? And if your most recent reviews 1 through 6 are positive, you're going to start to form an opinion of those people looking to do business with you to buy that vehicle from you or service their vehicle from you, right? So yes, Google automatically defaults to the most relative, right? I'm going to say switch it one character over and go to the most recent, go to the newest, and make sure that's where you're winning, right? We also don't expect to all have 5-star reviews because we're human at the end of the day. We're selling cars and we're servicing cars, and we're human. We're going to fail at some point. The question is, did we respond to the negative review in such a way that made sure that that online consumer felt comfortable enough to come do business with us, right? The other thing I'm going to say is this: there's some information out there that says I don't have to respond to every positive and every negative review. I'm here to debunk that myth and tell you, yes, every single positive and negative, if you want to call it a not so positive review, however you want to spin it, all of those need to be responded to, right? When you respond to positive and negative reviews in the right way, you're going to find that more and more of those consumers will trust you as a business inside of their community, because the community is what we're looking to make sure that we have visibility on with reputation management. That's your outward projected image, how well you're servicing the community. It also goes to SEO value because Google's looking at those responses as well, because they want to serve up the very best possible result for what a consumer is looking for. And although you might have the right car or the right truck, your reviews might not say you're the best dealer to go buy from. So kind of keep that in mind, right? That it's not just they're going to serve you up because you're the closest. The algorithm will now look and say, hey, by the way, you might be the closest, but your star rating is 3.8 and the other dealer is a 4.6. I, as Google, might serve up the 4.6, even though it's further away. So kind of keep that in mind, right? They want to serve up the best possible solution for the online consumer, right? So now taking that all into account and knowing that all these people are online looking at these reviews, right? And they're taking them in a higher position than your family and your friends, right? Like think about it. Like I don't call my friends and say, hey, what's the best steakhouse in the city I've never been in? I just go online and I search for the best steakhouse. And the first thing I look for is the review rating. I don't read it yet. I look at the star rating. But then I don't trust that, right? Because I'm not fully trusting on Google or maybe some of the other platforms. So then I'm part of the 60% or the 59% that then go check out a secondary review site. Because I want to find out if the first one mirrors the second one. And if I get two differences of opinion, I might go back to Google and search again, right? So when I say go look at Google, go look at Facebook or Meta properties, go look at Reddit, go look at some of your third parties that consume and aggregate your reviews. and make sure that you're doing a good job on all of them, it'll behoove you to make sure that you do more than just one site check. Because recently I've seen a lot of my dealer friends or dealer partners who will put a lot of emphasis on Google. And yes, I know they're the biggest, gorilla out there, but there's many people that search outside of Google. And we need to make sure that no matter where they're searching and no matter what they find the positive reviews about your store. So always do a double check on your reviews across multiple sites. And you have credentials for these sites. Most of them you do, right? Let's make sure you have them so you could respond to those reviews as well. Because earlier today, we talked about responding to every positive and every negative review. So kind of keep that in mind, right? 2 sites is to be the way to go. Now, for those of you who are SNL fans, right? Justin Timberlake, aka JT, who used to come out with these awesome skits. And once again, my video is not fully playing here, but some of us might think, hey, I'm going to get a really crazy idea like Justin Timberlake, and bring it on down to Reviewville. I can tell you that might help, but I don't recommend it, right? Like that is an awesome skit on Saturday Night Live. There's there's probably 5 or 10 of them out there that still make me laugh to this day. But this is just tried and true work that will help you get your reviews up, right? So if you know some of these stats, you'll start to see how important this is, right? So remember, we talked about review 1 through 6. Like 70% of the people are forming their opinion of you. We know 60% of the people are checking 2 different sites out. But we also know the very first thing they look at, 76%, nearly 80% of the people, they look at your star rating first. And some dealers will say, John, well, that's great. I've got a 4.0 star rating. I'm doing a great job. I'm going to say you're doing an okay job, right? So I always help by making sure we all know where benchmarks are. 4.6 is the floor. If you're not at 4.6, we should be looking at it. If you're at 4, you're getting ready to pull the fire alarm, right? So if you knew that about 80% of the people look at that star rating first and you're happy with a 4 out of a 5, then I would go back to the drawing board with my team and say, hey, how do I move that number to 4.2 or 4.3 or 4.5 and get myself to 4.6 and stay consistently in that area, right? So kind of keep that in mind. 4.6 should be your litmus, should be your floor for your review rating. Now, Facebook got away with the review star rating. They go a percentage of it, right? But if you're looking specifically at Google, right, go 4.6. Don't fall below 4, right? If you fall below 4, pull the fire alarm. Maybe we'll get Justin Timberlake to come back with that outfit. We'll go out in front of the store, right? But we need to really make a concerted effort at 4 and below to ramp that up. Now let's talk about negative reviews. The stat says 86% of the people will avoid businesses with negative reviews. I'm going to kind of converse that a little bit. If the answer is that you don't respond in a positive way to the negative reviews that people put out there, the 86% holds true if you don't respond, which means that they'll still do business with you as long as you professionally respond in an attempt to correct the situation. Notice I didn't say apologize in any way, shape, or form, but they need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed in the public format and then take them offline. We just can't assume that a negative review will be out there with no response and think people will say, oh, I'm sure that dealer took care of that, that neighbor of mine, although it doesn't say it online. So 86% holds true if you don't respond. But consumers are pretty smart people. And I know, and we've all been to some fantastic steakhouses, right? In the car business, we love steaks and we love wine, right? We love a lot of other things as well. But when you look at some of the most fantastic places or steakhouses you've been in, most of them don't have a 5-star review either, right? So it's being honest. It's saying, you know what? I would love a 5-star across my board all the time. But in reality, I'm human. I ended up with a 4.6 or 4.7. Here's a couple of blemishes on my reviews, but I responded to them, right? I'm letting the consumer know that, hey, we're not perfect, but we're always setting and striving out to be perfect. So kind of keep that in mind. If you want the 86% of the people to avoid you, don't answer the negative reviews, and certainly don't go after them in your review response. Right, I've seen that as well. Right, professional responses will save the day. If you don't respond, or you respond to be antagonistic, that'll work against us in all those, right? So let's talk about fake reviews. Boy, they're out there in droves today, right? Everywhere I look, I see fake reviews, right? And there's a way to combat that, right? One way is not to automatically dispute every review that's negative, right? Sure, you could do that. After a while, right, that will catch up to you. In reality, when you have a negative review out there, right, address it, find out how we can correct that situation from happening again so we don't get a negative review. But there is a practice out there where everything below a 3, I'm just going to dispute. I'm going to play the game. I'm going to play the table in Vegas and see if I win. Listen, that's one way to do it. But if we're not going back to looking and see why we're getting the negative reviews, you're going to be that hamster on that wheel, right? Constantly disputing reviews. And eventually Google and Meta and the other properties will figure that out, and then they won't help you out any further, right? So kind of keep that in mind. But the negative reviews or the fake reviews are out there. Our job as an industry is when we spot them on our own properties, our own dealership website properties, Facebook, Google, whatever, that we address them so we can get them removed, whether they're good or bad, right? It's really important. Because right now with AI generated reviews and overseas generated reviews, it's actually quite simple to do this from both a fake perspective and even a real perspective. So make sure that we're addressing all those fake reviews, right? And then when you spot those issues, address them, right? Because you need to focus on your trust inside your community and your transparency inside your community. If we're being honest with ourselves, and I'm a pretty transparent guy. If you don't know me and you want to get to know me, you're going to find out that Johnny Mac is a transparent guy. That when it comes down to it, what people see online about car dealers is only what we want them to see. So what that means is this. If you're going to be trustful and transparent, let's do that. We've already got enough wind in our sails with consumers to say they don't trust us. Let's go the opposite way. Let's take the wind out of the sails so that they can literally believe what they see about us online to be true, not only for our neighbors and our friends, but for the whole community, because that's what we need to focus on, is being transparent and true. So what does that mean? That means stay authentic and be verifiable, right? Just literally be authentic and be verifiable. What does that mean, right? That means when you do a review response, be authentic about it. Don't have 5 different responses in a Word document that you're just going to cut and paste and over and over and over. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. That's not authentic. That's just robotic, right? So when you want to respond to a review and you want to get this back and forth engagement, be authentic, be yourself, as if the consumer was right in front of you and they had an issue. Would you just say thank you and walk away, or would you try to resolve that problem? Being online or in person should mean no difference. We should resolve that problem 100%. And when we do that, we know that higher ratings will lead to increased revenue because more people want to do business with you. And let's be honest, average vehicle price, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Certainly there's less, there's certainly more, right? But let's say it's $50,000, $60,000. That's a lot of money to a lot of people, right? And before they shell out that hard-earned money to one particular store or another, we need to make sure that what they find in these reviews makes them motivated to come to us versus another store that might be not doing great at reviews, right? And if we know that all these people are engaging with reviews online, does reputation management now move into a need to have versus a nice to have solution for our stores? I can tell you over the past 8, 9, 10 years, the answer is yes. And I'm speaking from personal experience running stores as a GM over 5 stores, that when I started to make these moves and make these small incremental changes, it meant I was getting more at bats. The one thing every dealer always tells me, John, is I want more at bats. Once they get to the store, we close everybody. We've all heard that. But I need more at bats. I can't afford to lose an at bat because of my review rating is not at a 4.6 or 4.7, right? And we know that that review holds a higher place in people's brains when they're thinking about spending $60,000 than any traditional marketing that's out there. It's easy for us as dealers to say how great of a job we are. We're the best this store. We're the longest this store. We're the most family owned for this many years that store. They don't really believe that. They believe they're consumers online who they believe to be just like them. And if there's enough of those positive people in that area, they will certainly give you the at-bat to earn their business. So how do you combat the 30% of online reviews that are fake, right? It means that you need to have a product solution or a provider or an internal process where you can recognize those fake reviews and then have a authenticated dispute resolution process to remove them, right? You need to make sure they're removed. And I mean the good and the bad. Don't just remove the bad because all of a sudden you got a bunch of 5 stars from some folks overseas and you'll leave them. I'm going to recommend if they're fake, they're fake. Good or bad, you remove them and you stand on your own 2 legs with the work that we're doing to grow the business. Because just as quick as people can spot a fake negative review, they can spot a fake positive review, right? We're pretty smart people in the world, right? So don't have a difference of opinion of how and what to remove. Just make a solid decision today if it's a fake review to remove it, right? And they expect you to respond to those reviews pretty quick. It says here 53% of the people expect a review to be responded to within a week. I'm going to up the game if that's okay, Sean. I'm going to up that game. I've been doing this in the car business for a long time. You got 24 hours, right? Yeah, you might have a week. You know what happens after 24 hours? They don't think you care. And if you want to win the care game, you've got to respond quickly. For example, I bought a vehicle from you. I'm not happy. I roll back up to your store and I go to the front desk and the receptionist greets me very happily and says, somebody will get back to you in a week. Do we think that's going to work? Face to face, person to person, me in the store? Probably not. What will get my attention is if we can resolve it while I'm here today to get it resolved. The same thing in person should happen online. So if you're one of the dealers who think you've got a couple of days to a week to respond to these, I'm going to ask that maybe we step the game up and try to increase the frequency so that you try to get to within a 24-hour period, right? And make sure that all the positive and all the negative are responded to. By the way, when you respond to a positive review, it gives you an opportunity to ask them if there's somebody in their family or friend network or in the community that might need a newer used vehicle or might be in the market for service, right? So it's one thing to thank them for the great review they left, but there's nothing to say that you can't ask them if there's anybody in their friend or family network or in the community that they might know that might need a newer used vehicle or might need service, right? And if they do, let us know. We'd love to help them out. Take it one step further as if they were in the store with us today. The downside of all this is about 90% of all the businesses fail to meet that expectation within a week. Could you imagine what that expectation is? It would fail if I told you it was 24 hours, right? But 24 hours is really the right number, right? Except for weekends and holidays. Let's not get crazy, right? But for regular business days, there's probably really not a reason that we can't respond within 24 hours the next day to a review that came in, either negative or positive. Now, I might have some naysayers. John, it's month end. You don't understand. I'm going to politely say, but I did. I do understand because I ran 5 stores as a GM. I get it. We're all busy. But if I'm trying to grow my business for the next month, I need to take care of it as it approaches me not stack them up and try to get them all done when I'm available, right? So let's exceed the expectation in the auto industry. Let's be the best in the world of responding to the reviews that are out there, because that's what's going to build the credibility and the trust, right? It's not what we say. It's not our marketing. It's not our advertising. It's part of that, but it's really, once I've gotten the advertising and once I've gotten the marketing and once I've been to the website and I start to look for you, do you have the 4.6? Before I drop, $70,000 or $80,000, and I'm going to spend all day, let's be honest, I'm going to spend all day there. Will I start with somebody that's got a 4.6 or a 3.8? Let me ask you a question. If you're in a foreign city looking for a great steak with somebody you didn't know but you wanted to impress, would you start at a 3.5 steakhouse? Or would you start with a 4.6 that's got 2,000, 3,000 reviews? I don't know about you, but if I'm trying to impress somebody, client, partner, and I've never been in this city before, I'm going to start with the higher rating review and the higher ratings. And the most frequent and the most recent reviews are positive. Because remember, the rating review is cumulative. But I want to see what happened last week, last month, last 2 months. So when you go there, click on the newest reviews, because that's going to tell you how well they took care of somebody very, very recently. So how do you do it, right? At the end of the day, I did a lot of talking about stats and reviews, and step one is make sure you've got a tool that does multi-platform review tracking. So what does that look like? I've got review tracking in a single place for Google. I got review tracking for Meta properties. I've got review tracking for even third-party sites like DealerRater and these other sites that collectively add reviews to their platform. The only easy way to manage this is to centrally locate it into one platform that can then be responded out of. So you're not logging into 7 or 8 different properties to do that, right? So multi-platform review tracking will certainly help you efficiently manage that. The other one is automated review collection, but more importantly, review solicitation, right? So every single person who buys a vehicle from you should get a review invitation. And everybody who comes in for service, customer pay or warranty ticket, and they close it out, should also get a review invitation via email and text. Gives you the best chance of getting a possible review to come back into one of those platforms, right? One of the easiest ways when you do these things is you can see where there's some gaps with the analytics and the reporting. So one way you can look at this is, well, John, if I'm a new car dealer, every vehicle that gets RDR has an email address. So we should be getting 100% of invitations sent out. I agree with you 1,000%. But sometimes we look at the reporting back in service and I see like an email collection rate or a cell phone collection rate of less than 60%. I wonder what's happening to the 40% that I'm losing, that I don't have the ability to even get my request or survey out to them. Right. So when we look at analytics and we look at the reporting, some of the things we should be looking at is in the back end and the front end. What's my email collection rate into my CRM and my DMS? Because if I have 100% of, let's say you have 2,000 ROs and you have 2,000 email addresses and phone numbers, 2,000 invites get sent out. Same thing with selling cars, right? So let's keep that in mind. The other thing with reporting is make sure that you've got tools in place that will really guide you on sentiment. And what sentiment means is, let's go with green and red. We'll make it easy. Green means go. Red means stop in the car business. I don't think there's any other way. Green means go. Red means stop. So the bigger, the greener, the larger the font is in that word reporting cloud would tell me that I'm doing a great job there. Let's do more of that. Conversely, if in the reporting in the word cloud, you've got, things in red and they might be small, and you've got things medium and large in there, my recommendation is we attack the red larger ones with vigor, because that means there's more than one people on multiple times saying these negative things about my store, right? The green is great. We all focus on the green. I'm with you. But if we want to improve what we're doing, let's keep the green going in that direction. But let's look at those red. What's slowing people down from literally giving me a positive review? And if you call me up sometime privately, I'll tell you some stories at my stores that I went through with the review process that I had no idea that was happening in my stores, right? And I was there from bing to bong. I turned the key in the morning and I turned the key at night. So I was there all day, every day, 6 days a week. And there were just things I wasn't aware of until these reviews came back to me. And I just kind of took them back and I said, wow, we could do a better job at that. Let's get rid of the red. And how do I turn the red into green? Right. And then make sure you're verifying and looking at on a regular cadence all your reviews and filtering out and getting rid of the fake reviews. Remember, you can keep the good if they're fake if you want to. You should always get rid of the bad, but I'm here to say that if it's fake, it's fake. Right? Just be honest, right? We're already working from a position of negativity. So if you want to win that game, if it's fake, it's fake. Get rid of the good fake, get rid of the bad fakes and move on, right? And then make sure that you integrate reviews into all your marketing that goes out there, right? Because when you integrate your reviews onto your website, onto your marketing pieces, onto your digital ads, then you'll start to see a lift happening there because now it's economies of scale, right? So now I'm not forcing the consumer to be pulled into a Google review. I'm now pushing it out, but it has to match, right? So make sure that it's an automated push pull so that if your review rating changes, things like that, it gets updated on your website and your advertising as well, right? Super easy things to do. I can tell you that when you incorporate reviews, actual reviews, up to date, real time in SRPs or VDP listings, people get a very familiar feeling for that, right? If you put it at the top header bar of, say, your website, and I instantaneously see that you've got a 4.8 rating, I don't have to go back to Google and search for it. If I happen to come across Google and it's 4.8, I've now verified what's on your website to what's in Google. I have a trust factor built. So keep that in mind. There's ways to really integrate your reviews into that. So how do we wrap this whole thing up, right? Again, for me, and I'm hoping for most dealers at this point, reputation management is not a nice to have solution for your store. It's a need to have, right? If you want to have the competitive advantage, we have to do everything in our power to win the game. And winning the game for most of us is being the dealer that they select. I've already decided I want a new car or a used car. Check. I've already decided I want this brand. Check. I now need to win in that moment when they say, do I go to dealer A or dealer B? We both sell the same brand. We're both 8 to 10, 12 miles away. How do I win that competitive advantage, right? There's a lot of things we can do in there. The one thing we can't leave out are reviews. So drive as many online reviews as you possibly can that are positive. Review them on a regular basis. Make it streamlined and efficient. Challenge all the fake reviews and get rid of the fake positives and negatives. I can't stress that enough. There's so many fake positive reviews out there. It's incredible. When you start to look at your own reviews, you might say to yourself, did somebody from Delhi, India buy this vehicle from me in Texas? Probably not. So let's remove the fake review because people can test that theory. And then finally, prioritize your trust in the industry and not only the industry, but your community, right? Right now, you saw the stats. So many people are trusting these online reviews. It's really important that we get in the game and we win this part of this segment of our business. Because when we do and you build trust without even meeting a consumer, they have never bought from you before. Maybe they're coming from a different brand and they're thinking about moving to your brand and you're in their neighborhood. They've driven by you 100 times, but they don't know if they trust you. Easy way to do that is with reviews, right? Make sure that you're active and managing those reviews. So hopefully today's segment on reputation management was eye-opening, and I brought out some, I call them golden nuggets for some people. And as the old Poltergeist video, for those of you who remember Poltergeist, it's an awesome movie. It's one you can bring back and watch years and years, but we're here for you. So if you need anything, let us know. We're always here to help.
A lot of great learning. And there's a couple things that jumped out, John, before we let everybody go back to their workday that just kind of rang out loud and clear. And I don't think it's mentioned enough, but you shared a couple things that made me think. One, reviews have turned into something that need to be addressed with urgency the same way that lead handling does. Right?
Yeah,
Because
for
if you
sure.
let something sit out there for too long, and I like your, it's not so positive. That really does matter. And it used to be, when you talk about need to have versus this is absolutely a must have for a business, you can't forget the process side of it. You can't forget the fact that if you let something sit for too long, it could have a catastrophic effect, especially because there are now countless examples of dealers who received a review, especially when it's somebody that was dissatisfied, but their urgency of response turns it around. Like you mentioned, when you were on the retail side for many years, these examples came to your attention that you hadn't seen before because you're literally so in the weeds you can taste the fertilizer. That's most guys in automotive, especially in management, right? You're just it technology hasn't made it easier for our industry. Like, there are people who would want to fight me on that comment, but I will beat them down because it's just true. It's a business that, like you have said multiple times, you're selling cars and servicing cars. You're trying to do that with the highest level of customer satisfaction and service and experience for people. But we're humans, so sometimes things go wrong, and there's so much nuance. Every day I feel like there's nothing that's black and white really anymore. Everything has so much nuance to it. And one of those things that also came to mind when you were, sharing this content was one of those areas of nuance is between the sales and service department. Sometimes the reviews that are being written about your dealership, depending on how you've set things up in terms of your Google business profile and elsewhere where reviews can be written about your dealership. But let's just talk Google. Let's just say that, the consumer doesn't go to look for your differentiated service department, right? They're writing a review on your primary location, and it's because they had a bad experience in service, right? It's very difficult to turn people back around when they had a bad experience in service. If they love the brand, right? You know this about me. I've been a Toyota guy. I've had a few Tundras now. I love the Toyota product. It's been very reliable for me. So I'm very loyal to that brand. And if I had a bad sales experience somewhere, I'd probably especially if it wasn't convenient to just go find another Toyota dealership, I'd probably give them another shot because of my brand loyalty and how much they earned that. Uh, but if they do something in the service department, it's very, very difficult to overcome. So a couple of those things that came to mind when you were going through all this content, I think it's really helpful to actually talk about things that we take for granted. And I think that online reviews and reputation management is certainly one of those areas. So thanks for taking time out of your day. I know that you just finished the end of a month and we're getting into a brand new month. And for guys like you, that's not always easy. So thanks to the audience for spending time with us. We will be putting a Dealer Alchemist webinar out once per quarter. I believe the next one coming up is going to be on search engine optimization. But we'd also love to hear from you as we start to put these webinars out. And that means that if you have recommendations or things that you'd like us to address or go deeper, we'd really love to hear from the voice of dealers. Usually these webinars are put on without that and without the consideration of what you might like to learn more or know more about. So please feel free to reach out. The easiest way to do it is go to dealeralchemist.com and find any of the number of ways to connect there. But you can easily also find Dealer Alchemist and John McAdams on LinkedIn. That's a great place to connect with him as well as Dealer Alchemist. And until next time, well, have a fantastic day and thanks for joining us.